So here we are. You guys are sitting there in the classroom, and I am sitting at home eating chocolates by the fireplace, reading a good book. No, I'm working really hard. My kids have been terribly sick with the stomach flu. I was not very coherent on Friday when I was in class because I was up all night with Will. So it just went from bad to worse. But hopefully I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and start a little lecture here about Mark Twain, so pay attention. Mark Twain, there he is, white hair, white suit, one of the most beloved writers in American history. In our book, as you well know after having read the first 4 chapters, is The Adventures of Huck Finn. If you didn't get to take the test on Socrative, you will, so don't worry about it. But it looks like most people took it, and I will get that grade entered today. Yesterday was a little busy, couldn't do it. I'm hoping things slow down today. If you see the picture here in the corner, that's often how it is depicted. We'll talk eventually, though, about the picture of Jim, because he is often shown as being about Huck's age, but I think there's evidence in the novel, as you will see, that he is much older than Huck. So Mark Twain starts writing this novel in 1876. He does not finish it, though, until 1885. This is a novel that's called an episodic plot. It's divided into 3 sections, and for the most part, those are the 3 sections we are going to read. Chapters 1 through 16, your quiz on that will be next Monday. Twain stops writing after chapter 16. And when we get there, we're going to talk about what do you think is going on in the plot that would make Twain stop writing. He puts it aside for many years, comes back, and quickly finishes 17 through 31 and 32 through the end. So superficially, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn seems to be the story of Jim and Huck going down the Mississippi River. And here's a photograph of the Mississippi River. If you have time later today, I would like you, if you don't have Google Maps downloaded to your iPad, I'd like you to do that so that we can look at the Mississippi. But you can see that it starts really far up near the Canadian border. It's really just a little bit of a trickle. And if I had my iPad here, I would show you some actual pictures I've taken of the Mississippi. But let me get a better pen here. It goes around and around and around and around and around and around. It goes out into the Gulf of Mexico. Our story starts about right here. So you can see they go more than half of the journey. Illinois is on one side, Missouri is on the other side. Does this possibly remind you of another journey that we took at the beginning of the year? Maybe. The road's the story of 2 men. Huck Finn's the story of 2 men. Mississippi is a river, duh, right? I'm not so sleep deprived that I don't know that. But it's still a road, it's still a passageway, it's still a method from getting from one place to the other, much like the road is. They are on a metaphorical road, both of them, in both novels. And keep that in mind. There's a reason I choose the road for us to start the year off with, and there's a reason that we keep kind of coming back to it. Do you remember this name, Louisa May Alcott? She wrote Little Women. Any Little Women fans out there? I used to love the story of Joe. I wanted to be Joe when I grew up. Her father, Bronson Alcott, was a transcendentalist, and he lived on a farm called Brook Farm. Louisa May Alcott said this: "If Mr. Clemens cannot think of something better to tell our pure-minded lads and lasses, he had best put a stop writing for them." She detested the adventures of Huckleberry Finn. She thought there was nothing worse being written, being published in the United States, and in fact, she took out a full-page ad in the New York, I think it's the New York Examiner, proclaiming to anyone who read the newspaper that they should not read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And in fact, she got it banned from the Concord, remember, the hotbed of transcendentalism, from the Concord Library. Well, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn remains the number 4 banned book in the United States, so it had a pretty auspicious beginning. What happened when she banned it, or said it should be banned, or said it should be eliminated? His sales more than quadrupled. I would suggest that Mark Twain never ever expected this to be the story for young children. Instead, he expected this to be a story that adults would read. And one thing, if you noticed, she referred to him as Mr. Clemens. Mark Twain was his pen name. Samuel Langhorne Clemens is his real name. His pen name is Mark Twain. He chooses Mark Twain because of his love of water and of the Mississippi River. One of his lifelong dreams that he realized very, very briefly was to be a riverboat captain. And Mark Twain, a twain is actually 2 fathoms. 1 fathom is 6 feet. So what would a twain be? 12 feet. So what would happen is the bottom of the Mississippi River was constant. It was sand. It was constantly changing with the movement of the river and water, flooding, thawing, things like that, drought. And so they would actually have someone who would stand at the front of the boat. They would stick a stick off the bow to make sure that there was enough water for the boat to pass. They needed at least 12 feet. So 1 fathom is 6 feet, so 2 fathoms is 12 feet, and that's a twain. So they would say Mark, comma, Twain, Mark Twain, and that is how he got his name. Fun fact of the day. Let's go back to what I was saying about this not really being a story for children, but it was really meant for adults. Understanding an author's life can inform and expand our understanding of a novel. Before he adopted the name of Mark Twain, Samuel Langhorne Clemens grew up in Hannibal, Missouri, a town in the Mississippi River where steamboats stopped every day. He was a rebellious and high-spirited boy who cut school to play in woods, swim in the river, and explore caves with his friends. One of those friends, Tom Blankenship, was the son of the town drunk and Twain's model for Huckleberry Finn. That alone lets us think that this is a story for children. The other thing that makes us think it's a story for children is because the entire novel is told through the voice of Huck Finn. There are, I think, there's at least one, there might be 2 places where I think that Mark Twain's voice comes through. He's actually trying to teach us a little bit of a lesson, and we'll talk about that. But anytime we read a novel and it's told from the child's perspective, it makes us think it's about children for children. So when we finish today, I want you to take a minute and I want you to go into Notability or Pages, I don't care which one, and I want you to type in Journal 1. And in Journal 1, I want you to write a paragraph about a favorite novel whose main character is a child. Write about a favorite novel whose main character is a child. How is childhood or controversial events handled in that novel? Is it idyllic? Is it comedic? Is it fearful? Discuss any opportunities or problems the subject of childhood might pose for a writer of literary fiction. How can an author handle difficult subject matters? So let me repeat that. Discuss any opportunities or problems the subject of childhood might pose for a writer of literary fiction. Discuss the opportunities and problems the subject of childhood might pose for a writer of literary fiction. How can difficult subject matters be handled? And in fact, if you can't think of a novel, and you can, I can right now off the top of my head think of a handful of movies. You can think of a movie, and just tell me about that movie. Tell me about that movie that is told through the voice of a child. How does that change things? How does that affect your understanding? What spin on life do you get from the perspective of a child where you might not have the same perspective if it was told through the voice of an adult? So you're going to do that for me when we finish here. Remember when I said this novel was for adults? It's because of the satire. And one definition of satire says it's the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's ignorance or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and other topical issues. If he is writing this post-Civil War, any idea what some of the issues he wants to satirize might be? These are just a handful of shows that are satirical. Monty Python, totally my generation, not yours. The Simpsons, The Colbert Report, South Park, 30 Rock, The Daily Show. What are some other ones? In all of these cases, they are taking current events and they're satirizing them in their hopes that through humor, the author, the writers, the producers, the directors, the actors can get their points across. If this is truly an adult novel, what are some issues Twain might want to satirize? So now, this is what you're going to do. You're going to break into your peer editing groups from the research paper. So those are small groups of mostly 3. There might be a couple of you that are 4. Make sure, please, when you finish, you move the desks back where you got them so my room is nice and neat when I come back. And I want you to go to my website, and I want you, in your groups, to read the article about satire. And then I want you as a group to discuss some issues that Twain might satirize in Huck Finn. There's actually quite a long list. We'll start talking about those together on Thursday. But I want you to think about that. I'd like one person in each group to scribe that. Now, don't forget, you have to go back and you have to make some kind of journal entry, either in Notability or in Pages, about a novel that you've read that is told by a child, the child voice, the role of the child narrator, what happens when the child narrator is in charge of how we hear the story. I'm not going to ask you to send that to me because my email is just clogged right now, but I'm going to ask you to have it, and I'm going to do a quick look at it on Thursday to make sure that you've taken just a few minutes to try to respond to this. And we might talk about it. So Anyway, I think that's enough for you to do today. Have a great day, and I will see you on Thursday.